Welcome to my world, where you will experience an atmosphere of love, relevant subjects, and motivation. So let's talk about things that matter. What matters to you matters to me.
Hello, everyone. This is Catherine Toon. Welcome to the Brother Henry and You show. I am so excited because I get to interview someone I've recently gotten to know, and we were actually on the phone for like an hour and a half, just kind of sharing it. I was getting my nails done and she was doing her thing and getting to know this amazing sister. I'm so excited. Her name is Julie McVey. And she recently came out with a book that she self-published, Why I Left the Church, A Personal Odyssey. And I think this is going to really resonate with so many of you out there that are kind of struggling with some of these issues. So, Julie, tell me a little bit about your testimony, why you wrote the book, what kind of brought you, because you have an amazing story.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And thank you for even being interested in wanting to know a little bit more about my story.
It's a great story.
Thank you. I did not grow up in a religious family or a spiritual family at all. So I didn't have that kind of influence, but I feel like I was always a spiritual child and connected to the non-physical, if you will. And I was always praying and fascinated by what could be out there. And so when I was about 16, I was introduced to the gospel of Christ. And I had probably heard something about Jesus before, but no one had ever really laid out the gospel of Christ for me before that time. So I fell in love with the story, fell in love with Jesus, and wanted to pursue what this relationship would look like. I ended up, for various reasons, I did start going to a church, but I ended up not going to that church anymore for various reasons. It didn't really resonate with me. And I didn't really, I continued to pray. I read the Bible actually off and on. It never really made much sense to me throughout all those years. Wasn't until I was 30 and I was pregnant with my first child that I started going to church on a regular basis. And it was a fundamentalist, evangelical kind of church. And I loved it. I got very involved. I sing, so I got onto the worship team. Loved that, loved the community feeling of it. Raised my kids pretty much in that church. And I kind of have a bit of an academic, like an analytical mind. And I like to research. I like study. You do too? Yeah. So I began really digging into scripture and studying some of these doctrines that our church was presenting to us. Some of them didn't fit or didn't suit me or didn't resonate with me. So I thought I really need to research this out and see if I can stand behind this. Because for me, I needed to feel like I could be 100% stand behind whatever I was believing in.
Sure.
And sort of what happened along the way was I started coming to conclusions that didn't line up with, I hear an alarm, sorry, I was distracted. Oh, is that you? That didn't line up.
Fire from Holy Spirit is what that is right there.
that wasn't, you know, the conclusions that my church or my pastor or my elders were coming up with. But I just thought that's okay and just continued moving along in my studies. So that's kind of my, did you want to know more about my background? I wasn't sure.
And you wrote a book, so it's Why I Left the Church, Personal Odyssey. So I assume there's probably more.
Oh gosh, there's lots more. Well,
that explains why you left the church.
Okay.
Personal Odyssey.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of things that I guess that I'm leaving out, but so as I continued to study and research, I mean, I got onto Facebook. It took me a long time to actually open an account on Facebook, but I did at some point, and then I created a Bible group. This was years ago, and this is when I was still pretty much had the same views as my church, and I invited a lot of friends from church, and we did little mini, question and answers online. And because I guess I kind of created a little bit of a reputation of myself, like, okay, Julie, she's got her nose in the Bible all the time. She probably has the answer to this, and so they come to me for, to ask questions, and so it was all great, but when I started to change some of my views, one of the first ones was on the doctrine of eternal conscious torment. Right. And I felt that just really bothered me too. Sure. But I didn't want to just say, oh, well, I don't want to believe in this. If that's what the Bible was teaching, I really wanted to know, like, is this really how my father is? And I think some of this, even more, I wanted to know more, even more so after I became a parent. Right. Yeah, I just felt like, wow, I adore my children. They do not have to earn my love. I mean, they're born, they're put into your arms, and you immediately love them, and you would die for them. It's an unbelievable kind of unconditional love that you have for your child. And then I thought, gosh, I mean, I certainly wouldn't love my children more than God loves my children. So that got me really questioning. Something else that happened with my kids and my boys and I, we would have so many discussions, biblical discussions, believe it or not, even when they were little. They were quite inquisitive as well.
It's like their mom.
Yeah. And one night, my younger son, he was, I think maybe 8-ish. He woke up from a nightmare and was just terrified that he was going to go to hell. He had said, well, the church, Sunday school, they tell me that I need to have Jesus invite him into my heart, and I will know when he's in my heart, and then I won't be going to hell. And I don't really feel that. I don't know what that feels like, Mom. I don't know what that means to have Jesus in my heart, and I can't make sure that Jesus is in my heart, and I'm going to go to hell, and I was just thinking, oh my gosh, what am I doing to my child? So because that's just, it just hurt. I thought it was almost abusive in my mind. So thankfully, I mean, as I studied, I really could not find any support or eternal conscious torment. So that kind of went out the window, and I felt better, honestly.
Right.
And that led me to researching annihilationism, another doctrine. And then that leads you to studying the wrath of God, and all of these different doctrines that we find troublesome for a reason, because we're in the image of God, and it doesn't resonate with us because God is love. Ultimately,
it's right there. Love it. Go ahead.
Ultimately, I mean, that's what I kept running into was, God looks like Jesus. oh yeah, God looks like Jesus. And the more that sank in, the more I started having this overwhelming peace about my faith. But it wasn't lining up with the church. And then I did share a lot. I started sharing a lot more on Facebook.
And how did your church react to all these? You're diving into the scripture, saying, that's not gelling with me. Wow, that's not making sense. All these doctrines that, near and dear and are the gospel. Dang, that is not looking like Jesus, who looks like love, and the Father looks like Jesus. Yeah. So how did
I started getting called out, and I guess it just there was gossip and talk. I guess it just spread how Julie's view was not matching up with the pastor's view anymore. And the main two doctrines that got me shunned, or if you will, or I received a couple of letters of, and one from the pastor and his wife, that you're not a Christian anymore because of these two views. That you're following after the devil, and you've walked away from your first love. In other words, they're saying I walked away from Jesus because of my inclusive view. Primarily, I had this more inclusive view of the love of God. And they said, no, you can't believe that and still be a Christian. But these were longtime friends. This just wasn't just my pastor. We had been very close.
It's super painful, right? So you're not just called out and shunned by your pastor.
And it was no more communication. I got the letter and I wrote back, and it was no more connection at all. Couldn't talk about it. It was very painful. It was for me like a death in the family, because you don't get the closure.
Right. It's really painful.
And I honestly feel like they forced me to grieve the loss of somebody still alive. And this happened not just with them. So when I was younger, I used to write quite a lot, poems. I sang, made up songs, and it was kind of my way to work through pain, because I didn't have the best family life. It was kind of dysfunctional. And I put that away for a while as I became a parent and busy with parenting, and I didn't write as often. And of course I did have the outlet. The worshiping was wonderful, and that was an outlet for me. But I started writing again to sort of process this grief that I was going through. It was very, it's hard to explain how difficult it was.
Well, probably. I suspect a lot of people watching this have gone through something similar or going through something similar. And that is why I just appreciate your authenticity here, because that ministers to people in the place for, wow, this was my family, and now and that is excruciation. So,
and I didn't expect it. I really didn't. Yeah. I was quite shocked. I knew that they would have issues with it, but I never thought that they would just cut off all communication with me after a couple decades of friendship. And so I began writing just for my own process. And then, because I wasn't planning to write a book, I was just journaling, really. And then I thought, I should put this together and maybe have it for me and have it for my kids, because I was known as kind of the Bible mom, and their nose in the Bible all the time. And I wanted them to really have a good understanding of what happened to Mom and her faith. So I thought, okay, I'll put it together. And then I thought, okay, maybe I will make it public. And so it was kind of just a slow step-by-step process that developed into this book.
Right. And so what are you hoping that people will take away from the book?
I would love it if it inspires people to write their own story, really. Or to just use their creative. I feel like there's so much healing and power, really, in using your creative, your God-given creative outlet, whatever that looks like, to help heal yourself and to help heal others, because you do have something within you that will relate to others. So that just for people to feel like they're not alone, so they can say, okay, yes, this is it. Because I have gotten messages from people that have read the book, and they're like, this is finally put into words what I've been feeling, and I never have, and that's like makes me want to cry. Honestly, it's like a beautiful thing to know that it's helping somebody. Just to remind them that yes, God is love, and it's okay to feel differently than your church or your pastors, and recognize that God looks like Jesus. This is what he's been trying to tell us.
Right. And that doesn't mean you're not following Christ. It means that you're not agreeing with the doctrine in your church.
Right. I honestly feel like I'm following Christ more closely to what I should be, because I feel like I have a better understanding of what he looks like.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And do you feel that it's possible, just a question, to sort of be to have issues with the doctrine that's being preached, and then still be a part of the body in the church? And what does that look like for you? You obviously ended up leaving. I mean, you're basically booted out. I mean, so you didn't like, I vote to stay, I vote to go. It's like, no, I'm not hearing from you anymore.
Right.
So, what about the people who are like, well, I'm not agreeing with everything that's going on, but I love this body. So how would you help them navigate?
It's so personal. Some people, I think that they can easily put aside those doctrines that they really no longer feel are correct, but they do feel comfortable going to the church, especially because of the community, the friends they've made. Excuse me. And I think that's awesome if they can do that. I unfortunately didn't find a way to do that.
You weren't even given an option to do that.
The pastor was no longer the pastor of the church at this time when I received the "you're no longer a Christian," but he still had a lot of influence there. I'll just say that. Yeah.
Sure. So, where is your book sold?
It's on Amazon. It's called "Why I Left Church to Find Jesus: A Personal Odyssey," and it's a brief telling. I love artwork, and you will notice that in the book, with each entry, there is a unique piece of art that I put with each chapter that kind of reminded me or made me feel like, oh, this kind of reminds me of what this entry is all about.
Right.
And I thought, we don't see that very often anymore. Color pictures in books, which I love. I used to read to my kids all the time because I homeschooled them on and off.
Right.
Beautiful illustrations in these children's books. Not enough in adult books, I don't think. Gotcha. I mean, so I thought, what the heck? I'm gonna do that.
So what advice would you have for someone who's struggling, kind of maybe in the same position you were? Maybe they're in leadership, maybe they're not. Any particular advice for them?
Oh, wow. Don't stop asking questions. it's okay. God can handle your questions. Your church might not be able to, but God can.
Right. Last time I checked, he's huge. He can handle it, so that's good. So how do they contact you if they're wanting to find out more information? Where would you send people?
Oh, well, I do have a website called julieview.com. Nice. And on Facebook, I also have a Facebook page, same name, julieview.com. If you want to check it out and read some of my poetry and my musings, I like to write. And some of it resonates with people. And I love, it may not be your cup of tea, and that's great too, because you probably have another kind of gift that you can share or you'll relate to, with another artist.
Do you have any plans for the future that or are you just kind of waiting and seeing, or how's that for you?
Actually, I think I'm going to put together another book. I have a couple in mind. One is just writings I want to put together of what I've written over the years of poetry and lyrics and prose, and now that I've done a book, and I know how to do it, I thought, why not? I think I could do this again because I enjoy it. Right. And I do have another book that I'm thinking about, but I don't want to share too much because I don't know if I'm going to do it or not. But
well, that's exciting. It sounds like there's just a lot of ways that the Lord is really using you and just helping to set other people free. And that's just amazing. I love your testimony. I love the depth of your asking questions and diving in to find out for yourself. And then just that being in the context of this beautiful relationship you have with Jesus. So that's glorious. So thank you so much for sharing and joining. You are amazing. Everybody get her book. go find her. So it's been really a joy to have you on.
Thanks so much for having me and for just listening, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh, you're so welcome. And thanks to Brother Henry who made it all happen. So awesome. So, well, we will be looking out for greater things to come with you. And, and for everybody who's watching, thanks for joining, and keep tabs like that Brother Henry and You page so you can get updated with his programs that come on regularly. So it's been a joy.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Hi, if you like what you're seeing today, be sure to connect with Brother Henry at www.facebook.com/The Brother Henry and You Show. And also be sure to check out and subscribe to his YouTube channel, which is www.youtube.com/Henry Harris 100. We hope that this has been a blessing to you, and we hope to hear from you soon. Keep watching, because what matters to you matters to Brother Henry.